Welcome back, everyone. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to introduce our next guest. You may have seen him in Battlestar Galactica, Being Human, Smallville, Supergirl, The Mist. You might know him as Starkiller from The Force Unleashed and as Darth Maul. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super excited to bring my next guest. He is also, beyond being an actor, a musician and author as well. The amazingly talented, my good friend, Sam Witwer. Sam!
Hello, Mr.
Welcome back. Yes! More claps for Sam. Sam, I'm so happy to have you back here, right? We did a podcast together, and I'm super stoked to be able to reconvene our conversation. Mm-hmm. You have, I know you get a dick. You're gonna have.
I know.
We need to talk about you.
What?
I know you want to talk about this stuff.
Wonder Woman.
It's the Wonder Woman. Yes, she is very wonderful.
Yes.
Also wonderful. You have a new album, the Crash Tones album.
That's right.
Okay, so we got that. You have a new book.
That's right.
Art and Arcana.
Yes.
Which I am gonna assume that's how I pronounce it. I had to look up
Art and Arcana or Art and Arcana.
Art and Arcana.
Art and Arcana.
Like Americana.
Americana.
But Dungeons and Dragons, the Art and Arcana, a collaboration book.
That's right.
That you were a part of. You film TV and movies. You are in video games. You do music. How do you do all of the things? How did you
At different times.
Okay.
At different times.
They have to be at different times.
If you do them at different times, then you can make everyone believe you're doing all these things at once. But that's not real.
I'm jealous of all of the things.
No,
I wouldn't know. No. I mean, look at this. You made an album. You have an album, a music album. You wrote a book. You use your voice. You use your body. You use all these amazing things.
No.
You're in everything, and that's so cool. And I want to cover a lot of this. I do. Because I want, let's talk about this. Because you're in music. How did you get into music?
It was really my first love. That's what I thought I was going to be doing for like a living. I thought I was going to be like, I'm going to be like a rock star or something like that. And didn't really understand how absolutely unrealistic that was. Well, because look, when you grow up in like a suburb of Chicago, there's not like, just go down to the agency and talk to these people and they're going to sit. There is no such thing, and you have no avenue into getting into any professional stuff. So you have to kind of feel it out yourself. So I fumbled around doing a lot of different things, and then the acting thing was sort of what hit.
There's an irony in the fact that you're saying about how hard it would be to become a rock star when you're a TV and film star. But it's fascinating to me that
rock star, man. Let's not call it a rock star. It's a TV thing. It's not. You know what I mean? Ask this guy. He knows. He's sitting here mocking me as we speak. No, you know what it is? Is like at the end of the day, you are whatever you say you are if you do the thing that you say you're doing. Okay. Right? So for me, making that record was my declaration of being like, well, I'm a musician. Because I made a record. It's on vinyl, and it's on CD, and it's on digital everywhere. And so that was my way of proving that, in fact, I could then call myself a musician, right?
Yeah.
Whether I'm a good musician or not is open to debate, but that's the whole point. So if, like, for example, when people come to me and ask me, like, how do I become an actor? What do I do? You just do it. And don't worry too much whether you get paid a lot of money or whether a lot of people see your work or not. Just do it.
Just put it out there.
And make sure you enjoy the process of doing it. Make sure that it's something that you get something out of. And if you do that, and if you can keep doing that and you enjoy it and it gives your life some extra, joy and meaning, then you can call yourself that if you want.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
There's a very specific aesthetic that you have, I think, in your life. There's a very specific aesthetic that you have. You are mired in science fiction, fantasy, and everything like that. And the cover of the album sort of dictates that. It really does show that. So what inspired the Crash Tones? What's the inspiration behind this?
Well, there's a little bit of Say Anything in there, if you guys know what that movie is. But see
him holding up.
But the you know what it was is the artist is a lady named Amy Beth Christensen, who created the original concept for Starkiller and The Force Unleashed. She was one of the lead, if not the lead, concept artist on The Force Unleashed. And she's gone on to work on movies and films. She worked on Clone Wars. And so I sent her a bunch of like old Buster Crabbe era Flash Gordon posters. I'm like, this is the kind of thing that I want for my album cover. And she took it and ran with it and created that.
Kind of nailed it.
Yeah, and the other thing was that I I was trying to say to her, I was like, look, the whole project is me taking different decades of music and smashing them together into the same song. You know, like you'll hear a little 1950s in the drums, a little 1960s in the, 70s bass lines, 60s in some of the way the vocals are recorded, a little bit of 80s in these keyboards, a little bit of early 2000s in the guitars, and I'm going to throw them all together. So I'm like, Amy, I need this to reflect that level of chaos. And that's what she did.
So that's behind the
name.
name.
The back is really cool too. It's again, she can kind of adopt any style artistically.
Yeah, you have that kind of 50s sort of Dick and Jane aesthetic almost behind this.
Sort of.
Yeah, it's with the creepy look in the window. It's pretty rad.
Which, by the way, that photography, Joel Aaron took that photograph, and Joel Aaron is one of the lead guys on Clone Wars, even the new Clone Wars. He's the guy that in Rebels, and he's a former ILM guy that went over to animation to help make everything they did look more beautiful. So when Clone Wars took a huge visual leap in quality, visually, that was largely because Joel Aaron signed up.
So your visual team is
Lucasfilm.
Ludicrously insanely talented.
Lucasfilm.
And we haven't even really dug into the music aspect of it, because that is really, really cool, because I'm guessing because of the way you style, the way you throw all these different eras and styles of music together, that's where the name Crash Tones comes from.
That was sort of the idea.
Okay.
I think so.
Now you, guitar and vocals.
Yeah,
Do you do
bass and the keyboards? The only thing I didn't play was drums. I have a very talented drummer in Chicago. When I was growing up, he was he was my tennis instructor, and he played drums really, really well. And so we started playing together. A guy named Tim Hibben, Soul Dog is what we call him. And he was, when I was in high school, he was, I think he was like 21 or 22. I was in high school, and me and him and a guitarist would run around and play gigs and stuff. So it's a way of still playing in my high school band without actually.
But if your high school band had the Lucasfilm arts department behind it.
I am shameless in getting any assistance I can from people who, otherwise shouldn't give me the time of day.
I mean, I think it's fair that these are your friends and people that you've worked with in the past, and you've done, I'm assuming, great things for them as well.
I don't know if I've done great things, but I've done things.
Give yourself a little credit.
Well, the thing is that the people at Lucasfilm, it's really interesting, and I may as well talk about them now as I'm staring at Darth Maul.
At you, essentially.
I was having this conversation with someone very recently because there's obviously a lot of Star Wars stuff coming out, and I'm involved in some of that. And she said, well, I just love that it makes you happy. And I said, it's not just that it's Star Wars that makes me happy. It's the fact that the people that work on it, they do it right, they work right, they collaborate. They're very creative people who love other creative people. So whenever I go and work on a Lucasfilm project, it's the type of working environment that you wish all sets or all working groups were like.
That sort of passion and love and sort of respect for what you're doing.
Inclusiveness, respect. Everyone has a sense of humor, and how do I say this? Now I'm going to get subversive.
Great. I'm in for this. Everybody buckle up.
There have been gigs that I have done where you sign on and you do a number of episodes for someone or something like that. But you can't get the people who have hired you on the phone for even 5 minutes to tell you what the job is, which is very strange. By the way, that's unusual. But sometimes something like that happens where, like, they don't want to do that. They don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean?
They want you to work, and then
just do it. Do the thing. We gave you a script and
dance
we wrote it down.
Yeah.
Do it. Dance, right? And that's not.
But not with Lucasfilm.
That's not the way. Yeah. Well, first of all, that's not the way generally I work. And for the most part in my career, I've been very lucky to work with people who don't work like that. But then you go to Lucasfilm and you're like, okay, so these people that I once worked with, you couldn't get on the phone with them for 5 minutes, whereas Dave Filoni will have a 10-minute discussion with you to get you ready to say 2 pickup lines in a scene.
I've heard the hands-on experience with Filoni is absolutely fantastic.
Because he wants you to get it right. And so his feeling, and we were talking about this recently, his feeling is like, the more information you furnish the people you're working with, or the actors, the more information you furnish the actors with, the better job they're going to do for you. You set them up to succeed, And so that's... So when it comes to Lucasfilm, like, these people can really ask me for anything, and I'm going to say yes, just because my working experience for 12 years with them has only ever been extremely awesome.
Yeah, why wouldn't you come back to that as much as you possibly? The place I worked at that was really great and I loved, I'm going to keep coming back to that. Much like Sideshow for me, by the way. Everybody is so great.
Guys,
everybody, give yourselves a hand.
Doing a great
everybody.
job.
Good for you. No, are we not? I think so. They're great.
Good job.
Good team here. Did you start by having this idea of merging all these things, or did you sort of evolve the sound from being what you would call sort of like your standard rock band stuff?
I think it probably started more of a standard rock band thing. There was another album I did years ago where it was basically the same sort of concept. I wanted to mix a bunch of genres together into one thing, but I think I did a better job on this particular record of realizing those concepts by making sure that when I say recorded the 70s type bass or the 80s type, keyboards or vocals or whatever, that I would research how they recorded that in those different decades and try to give whatever instrument that is in that song that flavor, like it was recorded in that time. So depending on the song, of course, there are a lot of different recording techniques and miking techniques and also trying to simulate how they would have recorded on these old open reels. And I was
going to bring up, I feel like maybe your acting background and being able to put yourself into other people's positions and other people's places and times.
Wow.
Because I've seen Being Human, for example, you went through so many times.
Right.
So many time periods.
The character, I remember talking to the producer on the show and we established because it didn't make sense to me. I remember when I was auditioning for Being Human, I was like, do you want me to talk as if I'm 260 years old? Because he wouldn't talk the same way that we do. And they're like, well, no, just talk the way that we do. And so immediately in the audition room, that whether we knew it or not, we were establishing a rule. Even in the audition, we were establishing the rule that Aiden in Being Human, this vampire guy, it's a show about a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost who live together in an apartment, trying to teach each other how to be people. It's a crazy show.
It's real fun.
Really fun. But we made a rule that Aiden talks the way he does because he's hiding. So if he looks like he's 26, right, 25. So if he's 25 in 1980, he's got to make himself seem like he's a 25-year-old in 1980. If he's a 25-year-old in 1950, he's got to be like that. So we made that rule. And he would have to modify who he was depending on, what time period he was in. We also made a rule that he watched Beverly Hills 90210 religiously. Anyway.
But it seems like that would help you sort of get into the mindset for the music.
Never been put to me that way, but that's exactly why. And I'm only realizing that because you said that now. Like I think the reason I researched the different recording techniques and the analog recording techniques and totally. And like what synths they were using at the time and what type of guitar amps they would have been using. The reason I researched that was, it was almost like an acting exercise. Almost like these are different characters that are interacting in the same scene, and I have to make sure the wardrobe is correct. I have to make sure that their hair is styled the right way, and I have to make sure that they talk and walk in the right way. So
you're an artist that takes the art seriously. So for those watching at home or listening, if they're not paying that much attention, how can we get this? How can we get Revenge of the Crash Tones?
Well, the one easy way would just be look up Revenge of the Crash Tones on Amazon. Another way would be go to www.samwitwer.com. There's another portal to another place you can get Revenge of the Crash Tones. And you can also get links to the Dungeons and Dragons book, which I'm sure we.
I was
talk
gonna
about
get
soon.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Calm
dude.
down.
Sorry, man.
We'll get there. No. I want to talk about this because this was a curveball from me to find out. I heard about the book, and then noticed the byline of your name on it, and I was like, "Huh."
What?
Like that Sam Witwer?
That guy.
Like the one I know. You are a D&D guy.
I'm a big D&D guy.
And you collaborated in writing this book, Dungeons and Dragons, Art and Arcana. Art and Arcana of the Dungeons and the Dragons.
That's right.
Visual history. When did you start playing D&D?
I was a kid. Anywhere, I think I was 9 years old, maybe somewhere around there. And neighborhood friends invited me over, so I rode my bike over, which like we did in the 80s. And they made me play this thing. They're like, you're a character, you have a magic mace, and these orcs are after you. And I'm like, what?
That's a lot to give to a 9-year-old.
Sorta.
A lot of information to process.
Sorta. But what was so cool was that the things that I said, well, I try this, and I do that, and then those were the things that were happening in the game, and I was like, what? What do you mean it's happening? It's in my imagination. It was just it was a big moment for me.
And so that world kind of brought you in and made you want to stay in that world, I'm guessing. If you're granted the opportunity to sort of live in this fantasy, which we can get into the allegory of what that would lead to your life and your career pretty easily. Like, you mean I can pretend to be something and have fun? Yeah, and you can get paid to do it as well.
Which is so funny. It is interesting that that human beings, when we create fantasy worlds like Dungeons and Dragons, like, I just want to live in that world. Be like, would you really?
Yeah.
There's like orcs and beholders and giants, and they all want to kill you.
I don't know if you knew about this world, but they have dungeons and dragons in there.
It's like when people, like Star Trek: The Next Generation being a classic television show now, right?
Yes.
But it's interesting that people. I remember having a talk with someone, and she's like, if it was between Star Wars and Star Trek in terms of what universe I'd want to live in, I'd want to live in Star Trek. And I'm like, oh, I understand that, because Star Wars, it's everything you do is ridiculously dangerous. And then I'm like, in Star Trek, there's children on the ship. And they get they're attacked every week.
I believe Star Wars opens with, it's a period of galactic civil war.
Right.
Someone's like, that's what I want. That's where I want to live. In the Civil War, where all the people are dying,
Right, but
I want my planet to get exploded by a base.
But I never knew, I don't know that the Death Star had children aboard, or that Star Destroyers had schools. It's like, I just kind of picture, like kids are like, hey, where'd you grow up? Oh, I grew up, in Michigan. Oh, where'd you grow up? Oh, I grew up on Mars Colony. Oh, where'd you grow up? USS Enterprise. Yeah. They're like, what? Why are you? That's a great ship. I heard all things. I mean, Picard and Riker. That's a legendary ship. You grew up in the Enterprise? Yeah. And they'd be like, well, what's wrong? Be like, well, I don't know. I mean, how many times were you in school when you heard the auto destruct counting down, and only at second 3 did you hear Picard's voice, cancel auto destruct? Yeah. At second 3. Or how many times were you in school and you're like, you're working with clay and you're 9 years old and then you pass out because of the life support thing? Or how many times did you look out the window and you see a Romulan warbird swooping in shooting at your home? Yeah.
Or like some mist takes over your counselor.
Right.
Or something. Yeah, that seems like it seems like a dangerous place to raise a child.
Those kids were traumatized and probably were never normal people. Any of those children.
Like, it's cool though. We put a 12-year-old on the bridge. Wait, what? What kind of weird internship
No,
is
but
that?
he's only flying the ship. He's not like firing the weapons or anything.
Don't
He's
worry.
like flying.
He's just driving the car that we live in right now.
I mean, it's
He got the job because his mom's the doctor.
That's right.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's right.
How did the idea for this book come about? Because this is a project. This is not book, and I'm gonna hold it. This is not small. This is a thick. This is a chunk.
That's right.
A chunky book right here.
You could bludgeon someone to death.
It is. I plan to, depending on how this interview goes. It's gorgeous. I mean, there's so much amazing stuff in here. I mean, I opened this right up to the pinball machine, which is. I was like, are we not zooming in? Okay, we're zooming in. How do you come about with the idea to do this project?
Really, just realizing that no one had done anything like that. Yeah.
That
that if the D&D fans that I grew up with, because we grew up in the Midwest, we were all aware of the story of how D&D came to be because it happened in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, not that far from Chicago.
Yeah.
So Gygax and Arneson and those guys were like local heroes in a weird way.
Yeah.
But it occurred to me and the writing team, which includes my brother Michael Witwer and John Peterson, who is like the foremost Dungeons and Dragons historian in the world, and Kyle Newman, director of Fanboys. We were all sitting around and we wanted to do an art book. We're like, there's so much cool D&D art.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be cool if we could get the native versions, like we could get like the actual paintings that were the covers of these books? Wouldn't it be great if we can get our hands on those? And we didn't know where to find them at that time. So we were going to do this book. And as we started talking about it, we realized that a lot of the artwork that we wanted to center on, the ones that we wanted to feature, just weren't, strictly speaking, the best art.
No.
And we're like, well, why is this, why were these, here, you want to hand me that?
You know what? Here,
Give it to me.
take
Give
my
it to
book.
me.
That's mine now.
Why, for example,
Because you're right, by the way, that some of these amazing, like these very important historical pieces of artwork, and you look at them, you're like, oh, that's not amazing. That's and then you look at some other things, because you when you look back, you're thinking everything's Frazetta.
why is it that we were like in awe of this, right? This is the front cover, back cover of the Monster Manual, first edition hardcover Monster Manual by, I believe this is a Trampier. God, I really should get that right. No, it's a Sutherland.
Wow. You know what?
I thought it was Napoleon Dynamite.
That's fair. But
Thank you.
I can tell you
But-
why you were fascinated by that.
tell
It's
me
because
why-
this was the first of that you've seen, and it
That's
was
right.
based off of something that was opening up an entire world.
Yeah.
You have what there was
Here's a Trampier.
there was griffins and centaurs and dragons, and like in what world
So-
did you have that at that point in time?
But we discovered that because we wanted to show these pieces, right? These pieces. Like, why wouldn't we just, like, for example, when talking to the publisher, they're all going like, why aren't you showing like the most beautiful artwork that's ever been done? Why aren't you showing like the really, really good stuff all the time? And that's an art book. And we realized, because we're not doing an art book, we're doing a history
It's a history book, yeah.
And we are now discovering where this stuff came from, and we are now also, for the first time, crediting, like, for example, the fact that Gary Gygax got these like high schoolers to do art for early D&D and stuff like that, and we are now crediting those people and acknowledging their contribution. Oh, and also that they totally stole artwork from, like, they lifted from
Was that Steranko I saw over there?
Marvel Comics, they lifted from Doctor Strange and stuff like that. They did all these things that you couldn't get away with these days.
Yeah,
But-
I see a lot of Steranko in those photos. But I mean,
But what we discovered is, like, once we discovered that we were really interested in some of this old, obscure art from the original editions of D&D, we realized D&D now has millions and millions of players, and we realized some of these people got in around the 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons, or the 4th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, or the most latest, 5th edition. And these people, while they are rabid fans of D&D, have never had occasion to know the history behind this, to know the story of how D&D came to be. So we're like, well, here's our opportunity. Like, no one's done this. We're going to do this. And then we got ourselves in a lot of trouble, because the fact is, there is no archive in which you can find this, for example. This is the original front and back cover of the Player's Handbook by Dave Trampier. And you can't find this. You
found it.
We had to find it. Well, we actually found this one 2 weeks after we were content locked.
and
yeah.
you were like,
so
hey, real quick.
It was like Indiana Jones, guys. It was like we had to go into like forgotten corners and dusty shelves and break into people's houses and say that belongs in a museum and blow up their shit. But the fact is like, we wanted to take you all the way to modern day of D&D, and it required, Wizards of the Coast were great help, but they only have archives up to a certain point. When you go before that, they really don't have much, because it's all been spread to the forewinds. So But yeah, it was just really fun to see how these things have evolved into the modern vision of what Dungeons and Dragons would become.
And I want to say, because you had the idea, this isn't something that you come up with an idea with and then 3 months later it comes out.
No.
Boy, there's a sort of lightning in the bottle feel to have. I'm assuming you came up with this idea several years ago.
It was a while back, yeah.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you see the resurgence in Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing in general comes, and boy,
good time.
Could you have not picked a better time to produce this book?
Yeah, that worked out.
Because it's a passion project.
Yeah.
And it was conceived as a time when it would have been a passion project.
Correct.
Had this come out 12 years ago, it would have been a blip, maybe.
Yeah.
But because you picked this very specific time, and it just so happened to coincide with other people seeing what you've always seen and wanting to buy into it, that it really becomes this amazing, fantastic book, gorgeous book, and I'm going to say phenomenal because it does capture a phenomenon.
Well, it does. I mean, D&D is so foundational to the modern pop culture, and that's, I think, why it has now seated itself in its proper place in pop culture, because it helped shape it. I mean, the fact is, when it comes to think about like, I don't know, in high school, the geeks that would play D&D and the nerds and stuff like that, and everyone would pick on them. And and guess what? They're the ones that went on and made movies, TV
Stranger
shows,
Things.
wrote books. And
Look,
exactly.
at Stranger Things is a great example of that. Like, Stranger Things is predicated on the concept of Dungeons and Dragons.
You're right, and our lead characters are these misfit, sort of nerdy
they're
kids, and the fact is the people that got into this stuff. I mean, look, I knew a lot of, really nice jocks in high school and high school football players, good guys, but they didn't necessarily go on to write Stranger Things.
True.
So it was always these misfit nerdy types who had all these interests and were maybe picked on, and they're the ones that shaped the modern pop culture. So D&D has always there's always been a slot for D&D just waiting for it.
Yeah, it's been on the precipice of, like, find us, like,
That's
we're
right.
here. Now, how can we get this? Where can we find Art and Arcana Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, there's you could go to Barnes and Noble. There is a Barnes and Noble edition with extra content with a big red cover, which is kind of neat.
A big red cover of
So
Barnes
there's a
and
Barnes
Noble.
and Noble edition. There's that edition, and there's also a special edition, which has a big box.
Dewbacks.
That works. It's right.
Echoes in the
with,
Death Star.
with digital dragons. And,
We
characters.
we always wanted Java in this, but we
Java.
never had a chance.
But then we could do it finally, and you're fired.
So yeah, the Amazon basically would be a place
Yeah,
to,
I guess
to
that's
look for
a-
it. So Barnes and Noble is where you get the Barnes and Noble edition. Amazon has that, and the special edition. The special edition has a really cool thing. We were able to print for the first time. There's this adventure called the Tomb of Horrors, which is like known to be the most deadly, dangerous. It's a wood chipper.
It's
for
a
your
tomb
characters.
filled with horror.
I mean, it's filled to the brim with horror.
You go regular tomb is a little scary, but
Right.
you add horrors into the tomb.
I don't want to go there.
Get me out
But
of
people
there.
would go there, and this was like an adventure that Gary Gygax wrote that destroyed lives, sent children and teenagers home crying because their characters would get killed in this thing, and there's been a recent incarnation called the Tomb of Annihilation for the recent edition of Dungeons and Dragons. But it's this landmark thing. It's this really important thing. For example, the Lich, Asirak, I think is how you say it, Asirak, is in Ready Player One as a character. He's in the damn book, and so what we have and what we were able to print was Gary Gygax's original typewritten with handwritten notes in the margin version that was never released. It's a pre-release version of the Tomb of Horrors. With the artwork is all done by a high school student named Tracy Lesh, and it's artwork that would lead to the artwork that was later published in the adventure module in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's kind of an artifact. We were able to create this artifact and put it in the special
That's
edition
so
box.
rad. All right, so that's great. Now I'm gonna make a shift to something that my high school experience, because I was a gamer, but I was not an RPG guy. I was a CCG guy. I was a card game guy, and my game of choice was the Star Wars customizable card game.
We talked about this.
We did on Sideshow, but I want to make that shift to Star Wars because, and this is one of my favorite things about you, other than you are very nice and I like you, is that you and Ken Knapsack, who have gone back and forth as being the Star Wars guys. You are one of the deepest Star Wars dorks I have ever met in my life. You know everything. You are mired in that world. And then you became a part of that world.
I guess so.
How much did your fandom influence the direction in which you got to sort of become characters? Also, who else is becoming characters? It's like you and Warwick Davis are the only people that play several characters of note in the Star Wars universe. Because you're Starkiller, you're Darth Maul, you've been Palpatine. I mean, that's bananas, man.
Yeah.
You're like reflecting on it.
I'm
You're
like,
man, I don't know. I never
just
even thought about that.
Well, no, but honestly, like I just got lumped in with Warwick Davis. That's awesome. That's like, I wrote that guy an email when I was like 16 going, "You're awesome, dude." And he wrote back, he's like, "Thanks." I'm like, "Yes."
Have you met him?
Yeah, several times. Yeah. Many times.
Just tell him about your email.
We know each other.
Oh.
Yeah, because he's done he's moderated the stage at Star Wars Celebration many times. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
He has asked me questions and I have answered those questions. I know his family and great guy. Great guy. He's Willow.
He's Willow. I like that that's the big push for you when we're talking about Star Wars. That you're like, he's Willow.
He's Willow.
Yeah, he's also like 30 Star Wars characters.
He's like 30 Star Wars characters. He's Willow. And Life's Too Short is an amazing show. Did you see that show?
The sketch of Liam Neeson coming in and talking about how he wants to do comedy is one of my favorite things on the planet.
I'm a funny guy. I would like to do
sketch
some improvisation.
It's great. You guys should check that out. You can YouTube it or go on HBO watch it. It's fine. We'll plug his stuff. Warwick's a good dude. I want to talk about this guy on his little cycle.
Speaking of Liam Neeson. Oops.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Talk about a turnaround here. Darth Maul. I want to talk about his vision because Darth Maul was, at one point in time, a one-off character that infuriated fans because he died in Episode 1. Fast forward to the Clone Wars. Dave Filoni and you are working together now, along with staff writers, to bring this character back.
Well, we were working under George
Well,
to do that.
George as well.
George had a very specific idea of what it needed to be, and so no pressure. Oh God, I'm remembering now how stressful it was.
Was it fun while it was being stressful?
So much fun, but it's the kind of fun where you're like, this is the kind of fun that could get me into a lot of trouble with a lot of fans. You know, because,
I mean, yeah.
Because Star Wars fans are not shy when they don't like something. And
they're known for their patience and understanding.
That's right.
The Star Wars fans.
There are plenty. Look, most of the Star Wars fans, as evidenced by the most recent Star Wars celebration, are wonderful, patient, kind people. Then there's the ones that are vocal and maybe are.
They're addicted to you. Don't you know that they're toxic? Yeah.
Well, they
Some are.
They didn't really show up to Star Wars Celebration. Star Wars Celebration was full of support and people cheering on Ahmed Best as Jar Jar walking on the stage and stuff like
We
that.
were so mean to him.
Uh-huh.
Everyone was so mean to that poor guy.
But what was so cool is that at Star Wars Celebration, now it's 20 years later, and those kids have grown up, and to them, they're like, oh my God, it's Jar Jar.
Yeah.
So, and these are 25, 30-year-olds who are like, oh my God, it's Ahmed Best, cool. So they're the heart of Star Wars fandom is quite healthy and sweet and generous. But having said that, anyway, back to the question. So, like, take Boba Fett, right? Like, he, for a long time, we didn't really know anything about him. And
Except he died like a Looney Tunes character.
Yes, he did. yeah, he did.
That's what we know. We're like, oh, he looks cool. Oh, well, he did.
He's terrible at his
It's amazing. It's amazing how we can go from looking like such a badass to then dying like a cartoon.
Right.
And you're like, huh.
Burp.
Thanks, Tales from Jabba's Palace.
But it's interesting because for George Lucas and company, it wasn't quite obvious that Boba Fett was Boba Fett because that was just a character to them. You know, like take Darth Vader. he was. There are, apparently in early versions of Star Wars, he was supposed to die. It's like it's a Saturday matinee, serial from back in the day, like Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe from the 30s, and like, there may be a recurring villain, but then you have your villain of the week, and a lot of them get killed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until he saw, this is working, maybe we should have Vader spin off, and wait a second, I have all these old drafts where there are these notions of characters turning and this father and son and blah, blah, blah. Oh, I know who Darth Vader is. I get it. So but when it comes to Maul, right?
Yeah.
The mystery of that character and the fact that he didn't say anything, in fact, was in many ways what made him cool. Just the presence of Ray Park. The presence of Ray Park made him really interesting and cool. So in a way, when you go, oh, well, now we're going to give him a personality and he's going to never stop talking, you can only almost lose. Like you can only almost destroy what's been created by doing that. And there's maybe a slight chance that you can win, that you can
pull it off,
that you could go through. Because you're like, what if the audience doesn't like the sound of the voice? What if the audience doesn't like the cadence? What if the audience doesn't like what's being said? The psychology of the character, all of these things. So we were very methodical about how we laid out every step of Maul's journey and what personality traits you'd see when.
I do want to discuss that too, because what we had from voice before was, at last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi, at last we will have revenge. It was very calm.
Yeah.
It was very, very chill, the way he delivered that line.
Right.
And now you have somebody whose rage keeps them alive. Living essentially through the Force, is crazy, is really has lost it, and is being brought back, and then kind of seethes through rage.
Yes. And
what was it like getting into? Like, how do you get into that headcanon, that headspace? How do you do that? Because that's an intense character to have.
Yeah. Well, George laid out this whole thing that he was cast aside and on this garbage planet. And he sort of made the garbage planet a little bit like hell. Like you had to go down into hell to pluck Maul out of hell. Because in a very real way, he died, right? In some ways, in many ways.
Yeah, he was chopped in half.
It usually puts one...
It's a damper on your living experience.
Yeah, it really does, and certainly changes the way that you dance. But basically, the idea was, and the trick was, and me and Dave Filoni talked about this, is like, okay, on one hand, the audience is going to want that, at last we will have revenge. They're going to want that. On the other hand, that doesn't make any damn sense. If there's going to be... It's going to be such a jip in Phantom Menace for Obi-Wan to win that battle after all that stuff, and then just have him come back later and say, "It's me again. I'm back." Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's a terrible story. There's got to be a great cost involved in him being stricken down the way he was. So the idea was he's a shell of he's in pieces. He's literally in pieces. His mind is fractured. And we have to show the hell that he's been going through the whole year. And what we talked about, and what we were hoping we were going to get across, which I probably shouldn't say this here, but I don't know, I'll say it. Darth Vader probably has some bad days.
Few.
I mean, right.
Few.
We see in Rogue One, he's like, they have to wash him in the...
He's a limbless burn victim.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and
you're
they
not
have
going
to
to
wash him in the Bacta tank, and he lives in this really awful place that's just like down the street from where, he lost his wife and lost his legs. And so he's probably has some bad days, but the Vader that we know, only yells really like once in the entire time that we know him in the movies. And that's after, it's after he pulls the rebels over and goes, "Where's the Death Star plans?"
Yeah.
Like, what? We're a consular. I just saw you guys fly off after Rogue One. Come out and tear the ship apart until you found those plans. Bring me the bastards. I want them alive. But other than that, he's kind of dead inside, right?
Yeah, he's very playing his hand close to the chest.
He's
here
kind of in control.
Yeah.
Right? He's a very controlled character, but clearly we know that he's pretty angry. So you imagine in his private moments, or for example, his moments behind that mask, his private moments inside the mask,
his thoughts,
may be tormented. So this was an opportunity to show, hey kids, you know how everyone likes to cosplay like the dark side? Well, it ain't fun.
Yeah,
it's torment. It's torture. And now that Maul, his mind is fractured, he can't have Vader's control. He can't have the Sith control over his own rage. It's completely taken over. And this is the torment, the raw torment of the dark side of the Force. And it's what's keeping him alive. That jealousy, that need to accumulate things has now stretched out into this weird, like he is now just gathering garbage around him. He can't gather power, money, resources. All he can do is gather garbage, and that garbage is now starting to stick to him. And as the years wear on, that garbage is now growing out, and it grows into these limbs, these garbage limbs animated by the dark side of the Force that get him around on Lothal Mind.
I want to sort of take a shift now to my favorite surprise was seeing Darth Maul in Solo. At the end, I yelled your name, which people did not understand. I was like, Sam! And everyone's like, "That what? Is there a Sam here?" And I was like, never mind, it's fine. What a curveball to have that leap. Because even though Clone Wars is canon, a lot of people don't expect their movies to have...
something from animated.
Yeah, and not only that, but something from a movie 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Show back up like Darth Maul. What was it like sort of getting the call for Solo and being told that this is it? This is...
I'll tell you what I respected about it was the acknowledgement that there's really, and again, it's all part of the same continuity in one way. But in another way, there's a very personal Star Wars that one guy made, George Lucas. And he made 6 movies and he made a TV show called The Clone Wars. And he was there week to week guiding and creating the stories for the Clone Wars and working on that. So I loved the acknowledgement that they're like, well, if George did Clone Wars, we have to deal with that. Yeah. It's part of the story. He regards us as part of the story, so we must go with that. But the other part was, the younger Kasdan told me, he said, well, yeah, this was a nice way of not just doing fan service, but shading out everything that we are hinting at in this movie, because we only have this movie to tell the story. We can't go into depth about what Crimson Dawn is or what bad things Kira maybe has done. Mm-hmm. So this was a great way of shading it in, using the work that you had done in Clone Wars. If you've watched Clone Wars, you know pretty much exactly what Crimson Dawn is. You know pretty much exactly what Kira's been required to do. So it was a way of, we could be really non-specific and say, it's this thing and it's over there. We just made it up. They're like, no, we'll use something that we already have.
It does a great job. One of the cool things about that is that Solo does a good job of allowing the audience to fill in its own blanks and to use context clues, but also to have stuff previously to build on and to incorporate. It does it masterfully so. I'm like mad that people don't like Solo more, because in my opinion, Solo's the most fun Star Wars movie. I wouldn't say it's the greatest, but it is far and away the most fun Star Wars movie to watch.
Funny and fun. Yeah, and that was the whole thing with Solo, is the ambition only ever needed to be a very fun adventure, and the Maul stuff, and if you've seen the Clone Wars stuff, that's where the bottom lies in that, because you realize Han Solo could have been converted into someone that worked on this guy's terms. That would have been bad.
You are about to record some more stuff for Clone Wars. That's exciting, right?
Or we have recorded.
Or you have recorded. Okay, good. Exciting, yeah.
What can I say about that without getting sued?
You can just say yes. You can just say it was exciting.
Yes,
that's fine. We actually we broke this out. This is exciting. We got an advanced sample of the Hot Toys Darth Maul figure here in the studio. You can check that out. That is on its way. And so that's the last thing I think we want to talk about, other than promoting your stuff and getting the stuff out there. Everybody, make sure you check out Dungeons and Dragons Art and Arcana. I'll just put it here. How about this? Mm-hmm. How about that? So you can get both things in. Okay, now we're doing more cameras. It's fine. It's fine, everybody. We're fine with it. Check this out. You can get it Barnes & Noble. There's a Barnes & Noble edition, a special edition. You can get the standard edition at Amazon. Also, don't forget to check out Revenge of the Crash Tones. I have it on vinyl here. It's also available on CD and digital download as well, right? I believe CD Baby is where you have
CD Baby,
it?
but also iTunes and Apple Music and everywhere that digital music is.
Sam, you're one of my favorite people. You're one of my favorite guests. I loved having you on the show. I loved interviewing you again. Guys, check out everything Sam does. I would like to thank you, Sam Witwer, again for coming and joining us. And thank you all for watching. And I am going to throw it back to myself. Hey, did you like that video? Be sure to subscribe by clicking the S icon on your screen and click that bell icon to be notified whenever a new video is posted. If you'd like more info on the items featured in this video, click the link provided under Product Info. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let your geek side show.